Join Walters this Sunday night at 6 p.m. for a DC Defender Conference Championship watch party as they take on the only pro football team in St. Louis.
Now to set the pitch. Breaking ball, sky to straightaway center and deep. Hasselback turns around to the wall, and it's gone. Right over the 4:02 mark in straightaway center. 2-0 Cubs. Pete Crow-Armstrong with number 16 on the season. To the deepest part of Nationals Park. So he got a hold of a curveball and crushed it over the center field fence.
Rutledge to the belt. Kicks in, delivers. Swing and a long drive to right. Deep down the line, it's going, and it is gone. Goodbye. In and out of the first row of the third deck and bouncing down below. A bomb of a home run for Ian Happ, his fourth of the year. And he has driven in 3 runs in the game tonight. It's now the Cubs 5 and the Nationals nothing.
And welcome to Nats Chat, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, who is at Nationals Park. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. So the Chicago Cubs are what the Nationals are trying to be, a really good team. And the Nats are better, no doubt, but they are not at the level of the Cubs. Not yet, anyway. And we, in a now concluded 3-game series between the two teams at Nationals Park, saw the difference between the two teams. Thursday evening, a 7-1 loss for the Nats to the Cubs to lose 2 out of 3 games in the series. You look at how each team is doing here. The Nats in this regular season now 29-33, run differential of -46. The Cubs in this regular season now National League best 39-23, Major League best run differential of +106. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by the DC Grays, part of the Cal Ripken Summer Collegiate Baseball League. The Grays are playing their games this season at Woodbridge High School in Northern Virginia. To donate and learn more about the Grays, visit DCGrays.com. So we now are 62 games into the Nats 2025 regular season, 62 games down, 100 games to go. Still a lot of season left, but we are deep enough into the season to have a sense of things. And Mark, this series against the Cubs was a reminder of how far the Nats have to go. I mean, the Nats, as mentioned, have made progress, yes, but outscored 15-4 over the 2 losses in this series.
I don't think there's any shame in losing a series to the Cubs, 2 out of 3. There's nothing wrong with that. That is a very good team, as you just outlined. But I think you can also look at just watching these 3 games. It did feel like a real disparity between the two sides. You had one team in the Cubs that they hit, they pitch, all that stuff, but they also played a much cleaner winning brand of baseball on the bases, in the field, executing in the moments when you need to. And you saw the Nats struggle with that, and especially in this game, struggle with that. Yeah, they hit into some bad luck. They probably deserved more than 1 run in this game. They had a ton of loud outs, most of them by James Wood, but a few others as well. But at the same time, they ran into 2 outs, didn't make a couple of plays in the field that they could have made, whether they were called errors or not. And that's that recurring theme, and those are those hashtag little things that we always talk about on Davey Martinez managed teams, that they need to be better at that. That's how you get to the next level. They have talent. You could argue that the young talent the Nats have matches up as well, if not better, than the Cubs' young talent. Now, the Cubs have gone and signed some free agents that the Nats have not to this point, so there is that. But talent-wise, there's not that much disparity. I think it's more just about the way they played the game. The Cubs played a much better brand of baseball, and it's the brand of baseball that, quite honestly, the Nats, I think, are trying to play. They're just not there yet.
The Cubs are impressive. Like, you look at their lineup, 5 different players are slugging above 500 for this regular season, just in terms of the lineup for the Cubs on Thursday evening. And to your point, it's not like the Cubs really have any superstars. I mean, Pete Crow-Armstrong is having a superstar level season, but I think he's too new to this to be called a superstar just yet. But yeah, the Cubs have depth. The Cubs have guys, it feels like, up and down who can hit. The Cubs can pitch, and the Cubs are having a really good season, and the Nats, as mentioned, just are not there yet. So you mentioned the loud outs. The Nats for this game, 1 run, 8 hits, 1 walk, 3 for 9 with runners in scoring position. The 8 hits, 3 doubles, and 5 singles. And what an unlucky game for James Wood. He is the Nats starting left fielder and number 3 batter, went 0 for 4, but with exit velocities per StatCast of 111.5 miles per hour, 104.2 miles per hour, 103 miles per hour, and 97.5 miles per hour. It was one hard hit ball after another. This reminds me of many of our James Wood conversations from last season when he would routinely hit balls hard and wouldn't always get the results. This season, he's getting the results. He's not had many games like this one where he hits a bunch of balls hard and doesn't have anything to show for it. But this really stood out. I mean, he was hitting balls super hard, but just was hitting them to the wrong spots.
Well, you know what Dusty Baker would have said about a night like that? He's not looking for exit velocity. He's looking for exit hits. And James Wood needed a couple more exit hits in this game. All kidding aside, if I'm James Wood, do not change a thing. He was on top of everything in this game. That is about as bad of luck as you're ever going to get in one game as a hitter. Stick with it. That's going to work in the long run. He'll be just fine. But it wasn't even just him. There were other loud outs. You had balls to the warning track. Alex Call hit one to the warning track. Josh Bell came within inches, it seemed like, of another home run. He settled for a double that almost wasn't a double because he barely slid in to second base ahead of it. So, I mean, there was good stuff happening in spite of the fact they didn't score runs. Now, that said, even with the bad luck, even with the hard hit balls, there were still a couple of key moments in this game where they had guys come up with runners in scoring position, a chance when the game was still close. It wasn't quite as lopsided as the final score would indicate, and they did not come through in those. And I'm looking particularly in the seventh inning at Luis Garcia's pop up to the catcher, and then C.J. Abrams' strikeout looking at a beautiful curveball from Caleb Thebar. Those were the two, I think, key at-bats, the ones that those two guys, in talking to them after the game, they wanted those ones back because they felt like they should have performed in those situations.
Appropriate, by the way, that Dusty Baker gets quoted, given that he served as manager for these two teams during his career. Yeah, so C.J. Abrams, he has been slumping, as we have discussed. He had 2 hits in this game. He is the Nats starting shortstop and number 1 batter, went 2 for 4 with a double and a single, but he had some rough moments in this game. As Mark mentioned, bottom of the 7th, Abrams failing to come through in a big spot. Bases loaded, 2 outs, Nats down 5-0. He struck out looking. And then there was what happened in the bottom of the 1st, a leadoff single to right field, despite having been down in the count at 1.12. But Abrams got thrown out in an attempt to stretch the single into a double as he came off the second base bag off sliding into it. And Robert Hassel III, he is the Nats starting center fielder and number 9 batter, went 2 for 4 with 2 singles. But Hassel in the bottom of the 3rd had a one-out opposite field single into left field. But he got thrown out in an attempt to stretch the single into a double. Some bad outs by the Nats on the base pass. I did think it was interesting that Nats manager Davey Martinez in his postgame press conference on Thursday night said he actually was not bothered by the outs on the base pass. Davey was far more bothered by the bad defense. He made it a point to highlight that.
You know, it's all about that pre-pitch. You know, you got to want the ball hit to you. You know, that's the key. You got to want the ball hit to you.
But he was not bothered by those outs on the base pass. I was bothered by him. I'm guessing a lot of people listening to this were bothered by him, but Davey was not bothered by him.
You know, it would be one thing if this was an anomaly and we didn't see this on a regular basis, but you and I both know this happens still way too often for them. And I'm all for aggressive base running. Yes, of course. But there's a point that you have to be successful at it enough to justify continuing to do it. And it's also situational. You know, they had just given up 2 runs. You're down 2-0 going in the bottom of the 1st, and Abrams comes right up, line drive single, good start to the game. Is it worth it trying to stretch that to a double right away like that when you're already down a couple of runs? Maybe, maybe not. Now, in his defense, he beat the throw. He just overslid the bag, which is a problem. You can't do that. You got to be able to hold on to the bag and not let that happen. So that one hurt. I think the Hassel one maybe a little bit more egregious. Again, you're trailing at that point 3-0, and that was a case where the throw did beat him to the bag. And, you know, it's fine to be aggressive, but you got to be successful at it more than these guys have on a consistent basis. And that's, I think, the troubling part. If this was the one time this has happened, okay, you shrug it off. But this happens more than it should happen to them. And on a team that, as we know, there are nights they look great offensively, and then there are nights that they have to scratch and claw. This was one of those. You just cannot give away outs because you're not on top of the opposing starter. You're not jumping out to a big lead. You got to take advantage of every base runner you have.
It's interesting to me that Davey Martinez over the years has never really sounded off on the outs on the base paths, even though that has been a real issue for this team for years under him. Now, I would say this season it has not been as big of a problem as it has been in other previous recent seasons, but on this night, it certainly was an issue. And Davey still was like, I wasn't bothered by that. I was bothered by the defense. And good on him for being bothered by the defense. The Nats this season are not a good defensive team at all. And the metrics right now are screaming that. I don't quite get why Davey has never been perturbed by the outs on the base pass. And I don't know if maybe he off camera behind the scenes is bothered by the stuff and just doesn't want to say it publicly. But I can't remember one instance of him ever really expressing anger over the outs on the base paths.
Yeah, it takes a pretty egregious mistake on the bases to get him going. And I get it. Like, he's okay with errors of aggression, I guess you would call it. You're trying to hustle. You're trying to make things happen. You're putting pressure on the defense. And there are times that they play that style and it works. But again, I think you have to look at the situations that you're in and is it worth the gamble there or not? And you do wonder if the fact that he doesn't get bothered by it on a regular basis, if that only encourages guys to try this more. And because they know, hey, if I'm thrown out, my manager still supports it, says that was worth the risk of going for it. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes there, but I do wonder if in the back of a lot of these guys' minds, there isn't really a fear of being thrown out on the bases because nobody's going to get on your case if you do.
Yeah, and that would be the point, is that if he got a little angrier and expressed that anger, if maybe we would have fewer of these instances.
DC Grays Baseball is an all-volunteer nonprofit that brings baseball and softball to kids in under-resourced neighborhoods of DC. Inspired by the great Grays team of the Negro Leagues, who played many championship seasons in Washington with stars like Josh Gibson and Buck Leonard, the DC Grays have developed their MVP program. It gives boys and girls in underserved parts of DC the same opportunity to pursue their baseball and softball dreams as do kids from more affluent parts of the DMV. The Grays provide expert coaching, uniforms, equipment, and tournament travel free of charge. A donation of $100 will help a child in DC to participate in the Grays MVP program. The Grays also field a team in the Cal Ripken Summer Collegiate Baseball League. Their 2025 season is now underway, and the next home game is Saturday night at 7 o'clock in Woodbridge, Virginia, as they host the Southern Maryland Senators. To donate and learn more about the Grays, go to dcgrays.com.
3-1. Launch deep right field. Way back it goes. Call can't get it. This one going to the fence. It'll bring in Shaw. Racing for second as Happ. The throw there is not in time. 3-0 Cubs. RBI double for Happ. His 22nd run bat into the season.
Well, the Nats starting pitcher in this 7-1 loss to the Cubs on Thursday evening was Jake Irvin. He allowed 3 runs in 5 innings. He gave up 8 hits, which were a home run, 2 doubles, and 5 singles. He issued 2 walks. He recorded 3 strikeouts. So as we have been monitoring the Jake Irvin strikeout saga this season, he on Thursday evening had 3 strikeouts in 5 innings. He threw a lot of strikes, threw a lot of pitches, but did throw a lot of strikes. 94 pitches, 60 strikes, 34 balls. But Irvin had another bad first inning. He, in the top of the first, sandwiched swinging strikeouts of Ian Happ and Seiya Suzuki around a one-out double by Kyle Tucker to the right center field gap, and then gave up a 2-out, 2-run homer by Pete Crow-Armstrong on a bomb to center field for a 2-0 Cubs lead. The homer going a projected 412 feet per StatCast. So it's interesting, right? We've been talking so much about Irvin and the strikeout. He begins the game by striking out 2 of the first 3 batters he faces, but he, over the first 4 batters he faces, gives up 2 extra base hits, including the 2-run homer. Jake Irvin now for this regular season, 13 starts, ERA of 4.02, whip of 1.23, a first inning ERA of 9.75. He and Mitchell Parker should start like a support group here, because as much as we've talked about Parker's first inning struggles, Irvin's have been nearly as bad.
Yeah, it has been bad. And kind of like Parker, he's been able to find a way after that and be fairly effective, but he's digging his team into a hole on a way too consistent basis. What struck me about this first inning, this was a weird one to me. He starts off the game with a strikeout of Ian Happ, and he did that on a pitch that was the second hardest fastball that he has thrown this year, 95.6 miles an hour. We have not seen that from him. And so I'm thinking immediately, ooh, he's got good stuff tonight. He's going to be on. And he gets another strikeout to Seiya Suzuki at 95.2. So just a slightly below that. And then the inning also includes a double, a curveball that is hammered, as you said, for the home run by Pete Crow-Armstrong. And then you didn't see that velocity return. There were a lot more 91, 92, 93 from him. And I'm just trying to figure out, why has it been so hard for him to sustain velocity? I don't believe there's a physical issue there. The answer I keep getting when I ask about this is that it's mechanical, and Davey Martinez is explaining his shoulder flies open, and so it creates more drag. The arm is behind the rest of the body, and you get diminished velocity. But, I mean, he felt it there for at least a couple of batters early in the game, and you thought this might be a good sign, and then he just could not sustain that. I think this is something he's really got to work on, because I think it leads to poor pitch location, and it maybe leads him to throw the curveball and other off-speed stuff because he doesn't feel confident enough in the fastball when he's not able to sustain that kind of mid-90s velocity, and it's down to low 90s instead.
He's not having a bad season. He is having, I would say, like a peculiar season. There's some weird stuff going on with him. Like the strikeout thing is weird. The first inning thing is weird. But the overall body of work actually isn't that bad. And so you look at him, and it's kind of like with Mitchell Parker. You say to yourself, if he could just fix these nagging things, it would actually be a really good season that the guy is having. Like, Irvin is not far from having an ERA well into the threes, and, you know, you're feeling really good about where he's at. But, you know, when he gets rocked like that in a first inning and the first inning struggles continue, it's hard to ignore that. I don't know what to make of the velocity thing. I mean, this goes back to spring training where he had the diminished velocity. That's always a red flag. I feel like they're always going to say there's nothing wrong health-wise until there is something wrong health-wise. You worry about, is it something that just isn't going to come back? You know, like, is the velocity, for whatever reason, no longer there like it was, say, a season or two ago? And I don't know that they necessarily know that answer, because it's been kind of a weird year for him when it comes to velocity. It feels like it's kind of been all over the place for him this season.
Well, but that's the thing. If it was consistently 91, 92, I'd be more worried. But as I said, he starts the game off some of the hardest pitches he's thrown this year, and they're very successful pitches. So it's in there. I find it hard to believe that if he was physically diminished in some way, if he was not healthy, that he'd be able to dial it up like that a couple of times and then not have it again. It seems like when everything's in sync, he's able to do that, and just can't keep himself in sync enough. So I think inconsistent is just the best way to describe Jake Irvin so far this year. He's had some excellent starts, including just a couple of weeks ago against the Giants, 8 scoreless innings where he was almost on the verge of coming back out for the 9th. And then since then, 2 really bad ones, one in Arizona and then this one. So it just has not maintained it to this point. But I think there's enough good there that makes you think he could figure it out. It's just a matter of him now putting it together and stringing together, 4 or 5 good starts in a row.
The Nats bullpen in this 7-1 loss to the Cubs on Thursday evening was not good. 4 Nats relievers combined to allow 4 runs in 4 innings. Jackson Rutledge allowed 2 runs in the top of the 6th, during which he gave up a 2-run homer by Ian Happ to right field for a 5-0 Cubs lead. Zach Brixey did toss a scoreless top of the 7th. Andrew Chafin tossed a scoreless and hitless top of the 8th. And Eduardo Salazar in the top of the 9th allowed 2 runs on a walk and 3 singles. The takeaway for me is Rutledge. He had been going really well. He is not going well right now. He now has allowed at least 1 run in 4 of his last 5 appearances. And, all of a sudden, I feel like we've gone from Cole Henry and Jackson Rutledge, 2 very promising guys in the bullpen. Now I think you say Cole Henry. I don't think Rutledge is worthy of being put in that conversation, at least not right now. These last few outings have been rough for him.
Yeah, I think Brad Lord has leapfrogged him on the right-handed depth chart in the bullpen. You saw Lord pitch the 8th inning the other night in the 2-0 game. He's in a slump right now, Rutledge is, and this is going to be a good test for him. The first time ever as a reliever, first time dealing with this kind of workload, which is brand new for him. And he felt like coming in that he was well equipped for it, that he's a creature of habit and routine, and he's developed a good routine, different from when he was a starter. And the stuff has still been good, so that's not it. It's just a matter of executing the pitches that he needs to. I think it's a critical time for him now. This is going to determine, is he really a long-term piece of the puzzle here as a reliever after all these years of not making it as a starter? Or is this just a temporary blip where you get a little excited about him, but ultimately he doesn't turn into the pitcher they always wanted him to be? He's going to keep getting opportunities because, as we've discussed, there's not a lot waiting down in the wings at AAA. So I think you're going to still see him out there. But at the moment, he's definitely behind certainly Finnegan as the closer and behind Henry and Lord. And so you may see him in more of these games where they're trailing and he's going to have to earn his way back into the higher leverage spots.
Yeah, I don't know if there really is such a thing as like developing young relievers, but to whatever extent that is a thing, this is a thing for the Nats this season because the bullpen isn't good. There aren't many viable options. And so if you are a Jackson Rutledge or a Cole Henry or a Brad Lord, you've got an opportunity here to work your way through your struggles and to grow as a reliever. And with Rutledge, we know the deal at this point. He basically is done as a starting pitcher, so his career is going to be predicated on whether he can do well as a reliever, and he's got a prime opportunity this season. This is a team overall with a not very good bullpen, not very many bullpen options, so I feel like there's going to be ample leash for Jackson Rutledge to figure this out, and if he can, maybe he can be a bullpen piece for the Nats for years to come, but obviously if the struggles continue, then that may not be the case.
Yeah, the opportunity is there for him, and it's it's really a reflection of all the other failures they've had bullpen-wise in terms of the veterans that they signed and the lack of developing true relievers coming up through the minors. And so he's getting an opportunity that maybe would not have been there for him otherwise, given his struggles as a starter. But they said, okay, let's give this a shot, kind of one last opportunity for you to figure this out and become a big leaguer. And there have been good signs at times, for sure. And there was, some encouraging stuff there for the better part of 2 months. But hitters adjust. And as I said, it's a new role and it does require learning on the job and figuring out how to get through those stretches. And who knows if it's, has to do with the workload and not used to pitching 3 times in a week, or if it's just a matter of his stuff and teams having a scouting report on him now. I don't know the answer to that, but this is a critical juncture for him. And he's got rope, like you said, so I think he's going to get more opportunities. But one way or another, they're going to have to make a decision at some point as the season plays out. Is Jackson Rutledge part of the bullpen long-term? Is he not? And if he's not, well, then what?
And at some point, presumably, Derek Law will pitch this season, we think, we hope. Orlando Revolta might be back this season, we think, we hope. And so some bullpen moves, in theory, are going to have to be made. Hey, Al Galdi here for Window Nation. We're midway through the year, and for many people, that means summer vacation is coming up. Will your windows keep your home protected while you're away? Save yourself the headache of coming home to a potential break-in by replacing your windows today with Window Nation windows. Right now, when you buy 4 windows, you get 4 windows free, plus you get a free exterior door when you purchase a house full of windows. And on top of that, you won't have to put any money down, pay any interest, or deal with any monthly payments for 24 months. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast. In this economy, what Window Nation is offering right now is a great deal. Your electricity bill is another good indicator of how well your windows are working, especially with summer temperatures here to stay. Lucky for you, Window Nation offers top quality, energy efficient vinyl windows built to withstand the sun's heat and keep your home cool. And did I mention that Window Nation windows come with a lifetime warranty? Don't miss your chance to protect and upgrade your home with Window Nation windows. Buy 4 windows, get 4 windows free now through June 30th. And remember, you won't pay a thing for 24 months. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com. That's 866-90NATION or windownation.com. And tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast.
Tim Shovers here for LinkedIn Jobs. Before I get to the promo code for small business owners who want to grow their staff, allow me to talk about a job in DC that I think needs to be filled by the right person. It is time to bring up Brady House from AAA and have him start at third base every day for the Nationals. I'm not entirely sure of the corresponding roster move, and the odd man out very well might be Ahmed Rosario. But let's give House a shot with the Nats at the hot corner. Anyways, if you need to make a crucial hire like your everyday third baseman, post your job for free at linkedin.com/natschat. That's linkedin.com/natschat to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Martinez leads off second. He doubled in 2 runs. And now Corbin to the belt. And the 0-2 to Ozuna all the way. Swing and a miss. Struck him out on a ball in the dirt. Blocked out in front. Gomes chases it down, fires to Zimmerman, and the side retired. 12th strikeout for Patrick Corbin, and a great recovery to get out of the inning.
All right. Next up for the Nats is a 3-game series against the Texas Rangers at Nationals Park. Game 1 is Friday evening at 6:45. The Nats starting pitcher will be Michael Soroka. The Rangers starting pitcher will be ex-Nat Patrick Corbin, who, as we have discussed, is having a good season. Patrick Corbin for this regular season, 10 starts, ERA of 3.71, whip of 1.26. As we have discussed, the peripherals for Corbin are not great. I still think this may well be a house of cards that's going to come tumbling down. But credit to him. He's doing a much better job with Texas as compared to the job that Corbin did for the Nats in recent seasons. It was about a month ago that the Nats got worked by another former National starting pitcher on a Friday evening, Eric Fetty. This in a 10-0 loss to the St. Louis Cardinals. Is history about to repeat itself this coming Friday evening against the Rangers? I hope not. You know, the phrase must win is not a phrase that gets used in baseball often. I'm going to apply it to this game. The Nats cannot lose to Patrick Corbin, and more prominently, cannot get worked by Corbin the way the Nats got worked by Eric Fetty a month ago. So if this isn't a must-win, this is a must-do-well against the opposing starting pitcher kind of game. How do the Nats do against Corbin? This is going to be fascinating on Friday evening.
I think it would be a pretty demoralizing event if, as you say, they get worked by him, regardless of what the final outcome of the game is. It'd be pretty demoralizing after suffering through those start after start from him the last 5 years, to then have him come back and shove it against them would be a tough one. Now, I feel like personally, this is going to go one of two ways. He's either going to be great, or they're going to get to him early, and it's going to be a classic Patrick Corbin start. And I mean that in the worst possible way from Corbin's standpoint. I don't think there's any middle ground there. I feel like it's going to be one extreme or the other. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. But let's point out, as you said, the peripherals suggest that he's not nearly as good as the baseline numbers say he is. You said 3.71 ERA. Okay. The FIP, fielding independent pitching, 4.80, suggests that he's been lucky. His strikeout rate is down from a year ago. His walk rate is up from a year ago. His home run rate is up from a year ago. What is he doing differently? He's giving up fewer hits. Gave up 10.7 hits per 9 innings last year, only 8.3 this year. Why is that? Well, I think there is some element of luck, for one. His BABIP, batting average on balls in play, last year, 338. That's very high. This year, 268. That's extremely low, generally not sustainable for anybody to do that. So why is that? It seems like, reading between the lines, the little bit that I've gathered from this, I think there are two things going on with him in Texas that did not go on with him for years in Washington. The first is good defense behind him. The Rangers have one of the top, metrically speaking, defenses in baseball. That makes a difference, converting batted balls to outs. We know he's not a strikeout pitcher anymore. For him to be successful, he's going to put the ball in play, and then he needs his defense behind him to make plays. So that's number one. And number two, and this is a sneaky one, and I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but somebody had looked him up recently and pointed this out to me. He has given up a bunch of inherited runners to relievers, and they're not allowing them to score. And with the Nats, it happened all the time. He'd depart in the middle of an inning with runners on base. Reliever would come in, give those up. Those get charged to him. So these are small little things, but they add up over the course of a season. And I think it's both a tribute to the Rangers that they play better defense and have a better bullpen than the Nats did. But I think also there is some regression to the mean that it feels like has got to be coming here at some point, because all the underlying facts suggest that he's really not pitching that much better than he did while he was here.
Exactly. So that's why I don't want to go crazy over, oh my goodness, he's doing so much better than he did with the Nats in recent years. What were the Nats doing wrong? What are the Rangers doing right? It may be that a month from now, we have a much different conversation about Patrick Corbin. But for now, things are going well. I'm also really interested in this game from this perspective. So when it comes to the advanced scouting report, when it comes to how the Nats are going to try to attack Corbin, I mean, they know this guy better than anybody, right? I mean, there's not a lot of research that the Nats probably have to do. So you would think if a team is going to make Corbin's 2025 season start to unravel, it would be the Nats, because they know every little nook and cranny of the Corbin game and how to get to him and where he goes wrong, because the Nats experienced him going wrong so many times in recent years.
I would certainly hope that there is a lengthy conversation, whether it was after the game on Thursday night or before the game on Friday, between a Mr. Jim Hickey and a Mr. Darnell Coles. And I don't know how often they meet together necessarily, because one does pitching and one does hitting. I feel like this would be a good time for Jim Hickey to share his knowledge on what he saw from Patrick Corbin as a pitcher the last several years and present that to Darnell Coles, the hitting coach, for him to develop a hitting plan for his guys going into this. It sounds weird to say, but I think this is a fascinating matchup. I'm really interested to see how this goes. And my gut feeling is that it's going to be one way or the other. I don't think at the end of the night, we're going to say, Corbin gave up, 3 runs and 5 1/3. I feel like this is either going to be, he went 6 or 7, giving up 2 or less, or he got knocked out early because the Nats were all over him, the way they've been with several starting pitchers recently, not so much the last few days.
May 9th, a 10-0 Nats loss to the Cardinals. Eric Fedde in that game, a 6-hit shutout, 8 strikeouts, no walks. Do not get Feddied by Patrick Corbin on Friday evening. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by the DC Grays, part of the Cal Ripken Summer Collegiate Baseball League. The Grays are playing their games this season at Woodbridge High School in Northern Virginia. To donate and learn more about the Grays, visit dcgrays.com. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can hit us up on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email the show, natschatpodcast@gmail.com, including if you would like to sponsor the program, contact the man who runs the podcast, Tim Shovers. Again, the email address, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat, courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Crack to right, back towards the wall, and it's gone. Brady House with his 12th home run of the season, his second of the series. Both have gone the other way, and he has tied the game at 2.
And this is more of a defensive swing than the other night. The other night he just absolutely crushed it. But this is a ball that's getting on his hands, and he's able to just get the bat head out. It was a good swing.